Hey guys, Andy Gideon here. Just going to do a short video. A fellow viewer had asked me a very good question about scratch building. Basically, uh, where do you start? Any good advice? And so forth. So, Ethan, I hope you watch this video. This one is kind of made for you. Obviously, here we're looking at a set of Nick Zeroli plans for the Panther that I built a couple winters ago. And I just kind of wanted to go over real quick a little bit things to look for when scratch building. If you've never scratch built before, I highly recommend building something that is popular. So obviously the Zeroli designs, Jerry Bates, Valancourt, things like that. Or building something simple, sport planes or whatever. But the main reason I say build something that's popular is there's lots of information available on them. For instance, when I built the Panther, there was a lot of forums online I was able to look at to see a little bit more of a step-by-step on certain areas of the plane, and just absolute wide variety of information available. So that helps big time. Even though I have 26 years of building experience, it's always nice to kind of see what other people do. Even though this jet looks rather complex on paper to build, it was actually quite simple. But one of the main reasons it was simple is when you buy a set of plans from a designer such as Nick Zeroli, you get a detailed article text that you can get with the plans. And it's kind of like an instruction manual. There's not a whole lot of pictures, but there's just a lot of little details as far as what order to build the airplane in and stuff like that. The main challenge, well, wasn't really a challenge, but the main thing on this one when I built it was designed for the OS91 glow engine, ducted fan. So making it into a turbine, there were a few little, I wouldn't call them modifications, but there were some areas that needed to be reinforced to make the airframe so it was able to handle the extra weight. But, obviously if you've never even built a kit before, I would highly recommend starting off building kits. But there are a lot of people that I know that are just natural builders. Never built a kit before, never even flown an RC airplane. But the first plane that they do is a scratch built, whatever. And wow, amazing. It's awesome to see that a lot of people can do that. Myself, I don't think I would have been able to tackle this project if I hadn't had building experience. So build something popular if you can, because that way you can get online and see how other people do it. If you have a plane that there's not a whole lot of information on, take the time to extensively study the plans. Even before I started working on this project, I looked over the plans for probably a good 2 weeks and just pretty much gave a good mental image on exactly where I was going to start, certain things that I was going to change along the way, because that's one of the benefits to scratch building. When you go through and, let's say for instance, this piece right here was made out of, let's say they wanted it made out of balsa. It's not, but let's say it was called for a piece of balsa wood to sit here to basically make the point where the stab attaches to the fin. Well, of course I want to make that out of plywood. This is plywood by any means, but you have the ability to change things that you don't like, use other materials. If you wanted to eliminate this stringer here and make it out of carbon fiber, you can, or make it a little bit bigger out of a different material. You have a lot of freedom. Let's put it that way. But getting started. Whenever I build anything, regardless if there's an instruction manual or whatever, I always build the stab first. We're not looking at the plan for the stab right now. It may not even be accessible at the moment. But plans that are meant to be scratch built from always have basically a side view profile of every single part. So first you would basically build yourself a kit. Build the kit for the tail. You can go ahead and cut the kit for the entire airplane if you want. But I always find it easier to cut out the kit for whatever portion you're going to build first. And then whatever you build next, cut those parts. It kind of keeps you moving along at a little bit faster pace. And especially if you're moving along in the project and it turns out, oh, well, this former here, I'd like it to be a little bit thicker than what it is on the plan, but oh, I already cut the parts. So you don't want to do that. And that's the other nice thing about scratch building versus kit building is when you buy a kit, if you're going to change something, you've already paid the money for all these parts to be cut. So if you're going to change something, you obviously have a part you can use as a template to make another part, but then you're throwing that part away pretty much. So with scratch building, it gives you, as I said before, a lot more freedom to change things and just kind of do what you want. But I would highly recommend sticking to the plan if you don't have a lot of experience, because you don't want to go changing things if you're not quite sure what you're doing. But when you look at a plan, it's fairly detailed and fairly straightforward, especially when you're building from a plan like this, such as a Zeroli. Nick does a fantastic job going into extreme details, and it's a very easy build to do. Now, Ethan, I read the question that you sent me about the Andy Schieber pits, and from what I gathered, it sounds like you already have it partially framed up. If that's the case, then pretty much the hard part's already been done for you. You just need to go along and look for areas like on your control surfaces. Does it have reinforcing points for your control horns? Does it have blocks inside for your hinges? So on and so forth. Now, with that particular pits, I personally don't know how much information is available online as far as other people that have built them. I'm sure there is something. There's a lot of third scale pits, different designs that people have built. So I'm sure there is information that you could get that could help you along the way. But it sounds like you already have some building experience from what you sent me in the question that you sent. You've built some pretty basic kits, but they're still kits that require a lot of building. So you have the general idea of areas that need to be reinforced. So you should be pretty good to go. But what I would do is, obviously check all your mounting points, your firewall, make sure it's attached really well, reinforced. Quiet back there, cat. Struts and everything. Make sure all the mounting points are made of hardwood, no balsa. Things like that. But it's hard. It can also be a little bit more difficult to start on a project that somebody else has started, because you need to go back through, start comparing what you already have built to the plan, make sure it was built properly. So I kind of go over the airplane, start at the tail, work your way forward, and just make sure what's already there is built correct. And since you have building experience, if something doesn't look right, you'll be able to pinpoint it fairly easily. But without actually seeing the airplane or looking at the plans myself, I can't give a whole lot of pointers because every plane is different. Goodness gracious. That cat is out there just howling up a storm. Close the door. Anyways. But a plane like the Pitts is a fairly straightforward airplane. Top and bottom wing, they're a constant chord wing, so most of the ribs are the same. basically it is a scale airplane, but it's a fairly easy airplane to build. It's a nice platform to work from. But definitely use all of your kit building experience, and don't be afraid to get creative. Since you've already built before, if you look at the plan and aren't quite sure how something is supposed to work, don't be afraid to get creative. I did that, and I don't know how many places on the jet where I kind of look at something and go, I wouldn't do it this way. I'd do something different. So I did. But that's because I've built planes in the past, and I know what I can change and modify without compromising the structure of the airplane. So I hope that helps. Definitely go online, find out if anybody else has information on building one. And the one in the video that you had commented on was Rich Eggleston's Mike Smart third scale pits, built from Mike Smart plans. And those plans are basically a redrawn version of the Andy Schieber plans. So whether or not that helps you out or not, that's not a whole lot I can do there. But if you have any questions on anything at all, and that goes for all my viewers, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer what I can. I can even go as far as, doing some digging online myself, see if I can find any information for you. Because I know a lot of builders. I got a lot of connections in the hobby industry that might be able to help you out. But other than that, just don't be afraid to get creative. Take a lot of time to look at the plans, study the plans, and just kind of go from there. All right, guys, if you got any questions, feel free to ask, and I hope I can answer them to the best of my ability. Happy flying.